the science.
The fight is as the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. No way to death. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Tonight is Monday, October 8th, 2007.
That's not me looking at you, Chuck, there. That's the dog, man. Oh, we're on, aren't we?
Yeah, that's what the music
I've got
means.
my little chihuahua here in the studio with us tonight, and I said, that's not me licking your arm there, Chuck. It's a dog. Yeah, well, anyway. Say hi to Merlin here.
That's a great way to start the show,
It is.
Scott.
It is. Usually it's Trent that does that.
Yeah, some kind of weird thing. You're right. That's true. But
Guys, if you're listening to us tonight and you're wondering where our website went, well, it's a long story. I'm not going to get into it, but it's going to be back by next week. Just some technical difficulties on our end here. So anyway, that's that. But tonight we have with us Joshua P. Warren, the author of How to Hunt Ghosts, as well as Haunted Asheville, and a number of other things. He's been on Art Bell's show. He's been on George Nuri's show. He's been on, what was that show they did with George Nuri for Sci-Fi?
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was one of those, it was like the pilot show for that. I don't know how that's going to go. We'll ask him about that tonight, as well as a lot of other things. He's got a ton of websites, joshuapwarren.com, lemurteam.com, all kinds of stuff. So speakingofstrange.com, wwnc.com, which is where he broadcasts his show, Speaking of Strange, from.
That's
I've
right.
been a guest on there as well as Trent numerous times. And we're also in the movie Talking Tall with him, which is at talkingtall.com. So there's enough domain names here to build an army, okay? Yeah. If we had as many troops as Joshua P. Warren had domain names, we'd have already won this thing over there across the ocean. Anyway, but Chuck's just shaking his head. So
Smiling politely.
Did you hear about Senator Craig? Trent, did you hear about him?
Well, I mean, I heard that he wanted to take back his little opinion about being guilty, and he's going to stay in office until they, convicted him or something like that. That's the last I heard.
The judge ruled on it today. Is that what you were talking about, Scott?
I know. I was talking about it from yesterday. I haven't watched the news today. What happened?
What
They're not going to let him.
Oh, okay. I figured they weren't going to let him.
He already pled guilty. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Hello.
I don't know what he's thinking. So he's going to...
Craig, you're gay. Just admit it, man. Just admit it. Anyway.
I guess so. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, I'm guilty. Oh, I don't want to be guilty. I want to stay in office for a little while longer because I broke the law.
What do you think about? What do you think about?
Get away with it.
About Dr. Dobson coming out and saying if the Republicans go with either Rudy Giuliani or Fred Thompson in 2008, that they're not going to support the evangelicals are going to pull it.
I heard actually he was supposed to come out tonight actually with who he does support for the Republican nomination. My guess is actually it's Mike Huckabee.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Huckabee doesn't have a chance, dude.
Well, he doesn't have any money.
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have a chance.
I mean,
I like Mike Huckabee. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a good candidate. I just don't think that he's got what it takes to.
He's been doing well in Iowa, though, and there's the off chance that if he takes Iowa, the fundraisers will come in for him, support him through New Hampshire, South Carolina. Maybe he can get an early lead there. I don't know. He'd probably have to take public financing, though, like McCain and Edwards.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm for Fred. Fred 08. That's just, I'm going to make my stand there.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm with Fred.
Good for you. Good for you, Scott.
Chuck, we know you're with Billary, right?
Billary.
Not a chance, man.
Who you going for, man?
Well, certainly not Hillary, dude.
I'm just messing.
Actually, I got a text earlier that said that there's a new Rasmussen poll out that says that Edwards will beat every Republican candidate by a margin of 9 to 11 points in
Really?
his latest poll. Yeah,
Really?
which is I think better than any of the other Democrats.
I think you're
in the
probably
field.
right.
Why?
Because he's a Southern Democrat.
Well,
he ran as a moderate.
yeah.
He beat the Jesse Helms machine here in North
Yeah,
Carolina.
and
That's true.
he's clean cut. He looks all American
He knows,
guy.
the guy
kind of
knows how
part.
to win, and I don't know that
And he's a
apparently
trial
the
lawyer.
Democrats don't care about winning anymore either.
Wow.
He doesn't drive a big red
Yeah.
truck. That's true. That's true.
Whatever.
Neither does Thompson
You
yet. He's going to bust that out maybe in the third quarter.
What's that? The big red truck?
The big red truck.
Actually, this is the third quarter, maybe the fourth one.
And despite my policy, I also
drive a big red truck.
big red truck. Vote for him.
That's
I'm sorry.
right.
It's just
got to vote for the guy in the big red truck.
no, you don't.
Well, he's
Scott.
looking pretty frail these days. I don't know if he can make it up in the bed of it.
Oh, come on now. Come on. That was a cheap
I mean,
shot.
I don't know.
He took one on McCain a couple weeks back here,
Has he
man.
actually
That's
had
true.
Has he actually had a legitimate platform?
No.
Okay.
And I saw an interview with him
You know?
by
Did you see Hannity's interview?
Hannity's
Yeah.
interview. It was terrible.
I thought it was all right.
No, it was a fluff interview, and
Yeah, it was
he had
definitely
his
a fluff
kid in there
interview.
moaning through half of it.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Distracting him.
And then like the kid's gone in the next frame.
What are you talking about? What kid?
Their
His
kid,
little girl.
He's got like a 4-year-old
Yeah.
or 3-year-old. Or
Really?
something. Yeah. Very young child for old 70-year-old Fred Thompson.
You know,
Oh,
it
man,
happens.
hey, it's all good.
Look at Picasso. But I don't know. I mean, he's got to. It's come to the point where he can't just say, "Well, I'm studying the issues and I'm looking over the portfolios." No, he's got to have some actual policy to stand behind. Instead of like, I was on TV and I drive a big red truck. I'm
We've
sorry,
done. Ronald
that's-
Reagan, came out. I was on TV. I'm in the movies.
He had a real platform.
Yeah, it's
now.
true.
Yeah, he had something legitimate to actually go for.
And I get the impression that Thompson is a career politician that had his try at the acting thing and now has come back full circle.
Well, there you go, man.
Well.
Give the guy a chance. Thompson's one of those guys that they're just not going to screw with. He is. He's one of those guys. He's going to lay down the law. They can look at Thompson, and the Islamo-fascist will be in fear.
I guess so.
Thompson
Scott.
has some serious credibility issues, though. He's the one that was, I think, he wasn't prosecuting it, but he was one of the members of Congress that was investigating Watergate, and he managed to leak to Haldeman and Ehrlichman and tip them off that they had the Watergate tapes before it even went public. So I don't know. There are a number of credibility
Like I
issues.
said,
I think with the man.
I'm going to support Fred Thompson. That's just That's
Okay.
just my thing. That's my thing. Until I find a better candidate to get the job done, and right now I don't think there is one. It's definitely not John McCain.
Well, he probably is the most conservative one of the top tier ones. I'll
no,
grant
if
you that.
Newt Gingrich decides to run,
Newt!
His
name's Newt.
He's already announced that's a no go.
I know,
man.
but you know what I'm saying. If that were to happen, then maybe things would change. but
President Newt.
that'd be a good ticket, actually, a Gingrich Thompson ticket. Yeah. Anyway, tonight we have Joshua P. Warren with
You
us.
can't hear the head shaking over here, but
Joshua P. Warren, are you there, sir?
I sure am.
How's it going, man?
Hey, very well. Your volume's a little bit low, but I can hear you, reasonably well.
Our volume's
Okay.
always low.
we'll see what our producer here,
Ask
Mr. Browder can work on it.
maybe Chuck can fix it.
as we continue talking. So, how are things going up there, Josh?
Oh, very well. Busy. I mean, obviously, as Halloween rolls around, it's like Christmas time in my business, and it's the one time of year when everybody really wants to talk about the paranormal, and everyone starts, calling us for material. So it sort of renews the interest in this type of phenomena.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about your trolley tour in Asheville that you just put together.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. Yes, I've been in Asheville my whole life. I was born here, and I've been doing tours here for a long time. And in fact, these mountains are the oldest mountains in the entire country and the highest mountains east of the Mississippi. Some presume they are some of the most haunted in the world. Well, these guys who run a trolley tour in Asheville, an historic tour, they have 3 trolleys, and came to me and said, we want you to put together the best tour that you possibly can, the most exciting, comprehensive tour, and they didn't give me any restrictions. They said, just do it, we'll pay for it, we'll support it. So
Wow.
I went out and produced the best, most exciting tour on wheels this region has ever seen, and it debuts this Friday here in Asheville, that will be the big grand opening, and there's no point in talking about specific sites because many of your listeners, don't know anything about Asheville, and it won't matter. But I will tell you that to go through some of these areas in an open-air trolley where at any moment a hand could reach in and, and grab you, it's a little bit intimidating for some people, so it's a bit spookier than you might expect.
Well, we were talking about this, a couple weeks ago, was it, guys? Or was it last week?
What was it? We talk about a lot of things,
Is
Scott.
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Al Prophet on last week, and I said, well, I think Josh has put together this trolley tour.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And, all these guys were giving me crap about it, including Al, going, well, I don't know of any trolley that runs through Asheville. And I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty sure I heard it was a trolley tour.
I saw these. I think this is what it was, man. And he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe it was actually a tour bus that had the makeup on the outside of a trolley.
Yeah, that's what I heard later.
Yeah, it has some sort of top and maybe some wood facade or something on the sides of it to make it appear as if it's a trolley, but it's just a run-of-the-mill
This is
bus.
a bona fide trolley.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a specially made, handcrafted trolley. There's actually a group of guys in Florida who do nothing other than, I forget what their main job is, but on the side they do nothing but create these handcrafted, unique trolleys. And so there are 3 of them here. Now, of course, Al is not really an Asheville resident. He's
I know.
He's like a couple hours away, but...
it's all the same when you're west of us. We just lump it all into one
we all
category.
just got to bunch it all together.
That's right. Nashville, Asheville. It's all the same. Who cares, right? Mountains. West.
Cherokee, Hickory.
Yeah, it's all there.
A couple of minutes away from each other.
Now tell us, how did Dark 30 go for you in Asheville there? You had Jim Mars and Nick Redfern with you.
Dark 30 went really well. It was not a packed house. We were probably about 3/4 of the way full. But the group that came out was a group that was devoted to this type of information. And, the wonderful thing about Dark 30 is the concept altogether.
Joshua, are you with us?
Oh,
we lost him.
There goes the beep.
D, you're going to have to reach him again.
If you will,
Alrighty,
sir.
not a problem. But yeah, we'll talk about Dark 30. That's what they did. Talking Tall.
That's a great place
Chuck,
to go.
you've been there before, haven't you?
I have, actually. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Does it surprise you, Trent?
No.
It's a pretty fun place, though.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
one
actually-
screen, right?
Yeah, and
it
you
has
can
a
eat
bunch
pizza.
of hardwood tables.
Yeah, you can actually eat
it's a
pizza
great place to
and
go.
drink
and drink beer
Yeah.
or wine or
It's
whatever
like-
your thing
It's
is.
like a
Beer.
theater. It's like a movie theater in Europe.
It is.
Yes.
But it's
Which is-
cool because you can actually eat food and watch a movie and order pizza. And it'll come right
I don't
to your
think you
table.
can smoke in there, though.
No, you can't smoke in there.
Well, then it's not a movie theater in Europe, then.
No, it's more like one in New York.
you got him back?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll bring him back.
But yeah,
over
it's a
here.
great place to go.
Josh, you with us?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
It was the Men in Black. I just heard a click on the line.
Oh, yeah, they had to change the tape.
That's what we heard. We heard click, D. I was like, oh, well, there we go.
Well, I tell you what's kind of interesting is I was about to say that a lot of people don't realize the majority of the information in this country is controlled by the government. I mean, that's why we have the FCC there, for example, just to kind of regulate what can and cannot be said on various airwaves. And when you get involved in some controversial areas, especially like Jim Mars, when you're talking about, the government being involved with killing the president or bringing down the Twin Towers, I mean, whether or not you believe that stuff is true, just to discuss it is pretty outrageous. And so the idea behind Dark 30 was, this is a situation where we can get together for one day and talk about all the big topics: ghosts, ESP, UFOs, government surveillance, secret societies, conspiracies, all this stuff without any censorship, without any editorialization, face-to-face. And so the people who come to Dark 30, they realize when they've left at the end of the day that, they've gotten the complete scoop. I mean, it's the most that we can give them without sitting down and, talking over a beer, basically.
No.
Yeah.
So what did you? So you had a good turnout there. You had a good one in Kansas City before. Where's your next Dark 30 tour going to take place at?
Well, we have 3 options at this point. We have people who would like us to go to either Chicago, and I love Chicago, so I'd be up for going there in a heartbeat. We have a lot of people who want us to come and are willing to make arrangements in the Fort Worth, Dallas area of Texas, because both Jim and Nick live in that area, so it would be cost effective. I'm the only one who they'd have to, fly in. But the most likely possibility, based upon the enthusiasm and the people who are actually doing the legwork, is San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Marie Jones, whom you probably have interviewed, she wrote a book called Science, P-S-I-E-N-C-E, and she lives out there, and Marie is really eager to try to see if she can bring us out there. So it's kind of up in the air, and for now we're just taking the event one step at a time, but it is a truly, traveling show, and so far, every time we've done it, it has been, profitable. It hasn't been, extremely lucrative, but we haven't gone into the hole.
That's important.
So as long as we can keep this thing afloat, we'll take it wherever we can.
All right, well, what's new on the horizon?
My goodness. There is so much. Well, I will tell you just the main thing that's on my mind right now is this weekend I am leaving to go on our paranormal cruise.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to make that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is too bad, because this thing is the second one we've done. The first time we went, it was just to test out the waters, no pun intended. But now we are going all out. I mean, this is going to be pretty much a 6-day expedition, and we are leaving from Charleston, South Carolina, heading down through areas of the Bermuda Triangle, and then we're going to be in Freeport and New Providence at Nassau in the Bahamas, investigating pirate ghosts. And we've made special arrangements this time, thanks to an investigator named Steve Golden, who's been a friend of ours for a long time. Usually you cannot go to Fort Fincastle, which is one of the most haunted places on this planet, I assure you, after dark. But we've made special arrangements. We even have a police escort, and we're planning on going to Fort Fincastle at night into the bowels of this pitch-black torture chamber, where last time people were seeing apparitions at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, not to mention being there under these circumstances. So I'm getting pretty pumped for that, and I'm also putting together some outlines for some new books and a variety of new experiments.
Well, I'm really upset that we're not going to be able to jump on that tour with you. We really thought we were going to be able to, and time got away from us. But next year, my friend, we'll definitely try to make it on there if you're going out again next year.
Well, that sounds good, because, when we did this before, we had around 100 people, but we left from Florida, so it was cheaper, and it also didn't last as long. It was only, I think, 3 or 4 days. This time around, we set the thing up leaving from Charleston, because, Charleston is such a haunted place, and it's closer to where we live, and but it's also longer and therefore more expensive. And so, right at the last minute, I mean, we had a lot of people who had to cancel. They just couldn't afford it. I mean, it was, $600. It's not an arm and a leg, but, we don't make any money off of this thing. We just got our cabins comped in the long run. We didn't get enough for any profit, but that's fine. As long as we can afford our way down there to do an investigation, we're going to bring back some valuable information.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, when does that leave again?
The the cruise actually leaves on the 16th. I'm going to be leaving on the 14th, and I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days in Charleston beforehand, because I was in Charleston, I think it was in January, and I investigated the old city jail there.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Oh, man, and that is one of the most haunted places in the world. And by the way, if I ever interrupt you, it's not intentionally. The volume is so low that I can't always hear exactly when.
Oh, yeah, no, you're fine.
Speaking and when you're not. But nonetheless, yeah, we were there in January, and the old city jail is a place where over 10,000 people died. And they didn't just die there because of, disease and executions. I mean, there were a lot of people who were just tortured for long periods of time and ended up, exhausting themselves. I mean, they would take people and, for example, if you were a horse thief, they'd nail your ear to a stake and leave you there all day long and
Oh.
slice your ear off.
That's wonderful.
They would burn people. Rape was a form of penalization there. Again, no pun intended.
Oh, man.
And so, I mean, every kind of torture you can imagine. I mean, these people were treated like animals. They were put into tiny cages, living in their own waste, and it was awful. I mean, they had the old, room with the electrodes in later times, and I mean, it was just terrible. So that place, it's one of the few places in the world that you can walk into and immediately feel like you want to turn around and just walk out. This place in the Bahamas is similar, but man, Charleston. In fact, what really amazed me was, aside from all the things that happened there in the past, pirates being kept there, and in fact, America's first female serial killer named Lavinia Fisher was kept there and executed there. When I was there for 3 nights, I took some of the most sensitive equipment that I had, measuring a variety of electric, magnetic, and electromagnetic fields, and the whole place is pulsating with strong magnetic fields. And, I mean, I have done everything I could to rule out a conventional explanation for why this place is pulsating with these strong fields. And, in fact, I issue a challenge right now. If there is anyone listening to this program who does not believe that there are indeed paranormal phenomena that cannot be explained, that can be measured, then I challenge you to take a sensitive magnetometer to the old city jail in Charleston, South Carolina, and see if you do not measure these extremely strong, regular magnetic pulses that emanate from these grounds. And that building in particular, it's one of those places where I was scratching my head after day 3, and I still can't explain what's happened there, but it obviously has something to do with all of the emotional energy that was expended there.
All right, well, Joshua, hang tight with us. We're going to take our first break of the night, all right?
All right.
All right, guys, give us a call here, 877-SCARE-U2. That's 877-722-7382, or locally, 336-996-1596, and speak with the one and only Joshua P. Warren, author of How to Hunt Ghosts and president and founder of Lemur Team. We'll be right back in just a moment after this.
This is World the Unexplained. This is Trent Lackey, and we are talking to the one and only Joshua P. Warren, founder of Lemur Team, author of How to Hunt Ghosts, paranormal investigator extraordinaire. Joshua,
yeah,
let's talk about time travel. There you go.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because, as I research all of these different categories of the paranormal more and more, I keep seeing time travel as one consistent thread between them all. And, in fact, I am currently developing sort of an hypothesis based on the role that time travel plays. And let me give you just some basic examples. If we know that time and space are connected into this thing called time-space, and that one cannot warp without the other, then we can apply that to ghosts most obviously, because ghosts are often something from the past that we are able to experience in our present. So the time travel's there, obviously, and that means that the space is being warped. With UFOs, wherever they have come from, I mean, they have come from elsewhere, and in warping their place in space, they also have warped time. In fact, Jim Mars is fond of saying that whenever someone's car breaks down and there is a UFO overhead, usually the car doesn't break down in the classic sense. It just stops working, and as soon as the UFO flies away, the car starts working again. You don't have to turn the ignition again. So it's almost like time is being stopped there. And then when it comes to cryptids, you have so many reports of, Bigfoot or Mothman just vanishing, or let's say Bigfoot's footprints disappearing in mid-pathway. We know that cannot happen physically unless Bigfoot is flying away, the bat squatch. That would be a scary thing.
Yeah, yes it would.
So we can indeed imagine that If these cryptids are altering their position in space, they are also changing time. So I've been looking at all this, and this hypothesis that I'm leaning toward sort of redefines all of these things that we call ghosts or cryptids or aliens or demons or angels or whatever. I'm now preferring to call them paratemporals.
Okay.
And a paratemporal is some being that exists outside of our perception of the specious present, meaning that it comes from elsewhere in the space-time continuum. And in fact, this is the reason that I've thought about this kind of thing for a long time. I mean, people have thought about it for thousands of years, frankly. But what makes this type of hypothesis even more compelling is that just recently, I'm talking about within a few weeks, some mathematicians at Oxford University have, for the first time ever, mathematically proven that there are indeed parallel universes. And
oh, Lord.
So, yeah, they...
You're going to start sounding like Rich Anders on me here, Josh. I don't know if I can buy this thing, this whole string theory and the sliders of the Sci-Fi Channel world.
Jerry O'Connell.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm only looking at the most recent research. I don't know these fellows you're talking about, but I mathematically, of course, I'm not a professional mathematician, but they have said, Dr. David Deutsch is one of the scientists at the University of Oxford, that they have shown that every single moment, the decisions that you make tend to split off or branch off into a variety of parallel possibilities. It's the old Back to the Future kind of concept.
Yeah.
Now, if they are correct, and I have no way of independently verifying this, not being a mathematician, but if they are correct, and this is indeed what's happening, then it seems to me that there may be a variety of parallel universes, and in some of those universes, Bigfoot exists, and some Bigfoot doesn't.
In some of those, I'm a rock star. I'm a rock god.
There you go.
Yes.
Or UFOs or ghosts, and some they do and in some they don't. But what makes the hypothesis all the more interesting is that this hypothesis, what I'm calling for now the paratemporal loop hypothesis, is that your particular brain, your mind, is a universe unto itself, and it is independent from these other universes, yet able to experience each of them. So you have some people who are just more in tune with these realms where these, or parallel these realms where Bigfoot exists, or Mothman, or aliens, and others that have a brain or a universe that does not parallel those at all. And the problem with science is that science requires us to be able to measure the collective multiverses that we all share in common. A scientific tool is something we both have to agree upon. It has to make sense in your brain as well as my brain. And so the tool is limited by our collective overlapping perceptions. However, if there are perceptions that are real to you and me, but they are different, then a scientific tool cannot document them, and that may be the crux of why that we've always been unable to get satisfying scientific evidence for many of these paranormal manifestations.
So somewhere out there, World of the Unexplained is broadcast nationwide. It is the coast-to-coast AM of one of these third world things. Yeah.
World.
I'm just calling it then. Third dimensional. No, not third dimensional. Multi-universal. Yeah. In one of these universes, World of the Unexplained is coast to coast. In one of these universes, speaking of strange, is coast to coast. And in one of these multi-universal places, coast to coast is World of the Unexplained. Ooh.
Oh.
Tie one on for that.
Right. This is always what happens when we talk about time travel, even though it's an incredibly fascinating subject, is that any theory, or just for example, this one, it can have some pretty complicated ramifications to it. For example, I walk outside and I perceive a Sasquatch, okay? He's there and he's hanging out, and I don't know, whatever. That could affect my life for the rest of my life, and what if I didn't see that Sasquatch and my life would take a different path because I didn't see him? You see where I'm going with this, Josh? I mean, the possibility of the change in the flow of UFOs or ghosts or anything for that matter.
It's even different from that, though. Let's say, for example, the third beer that you decided you weren't going to have before, you were only going to have 2, now you're having 3. Well, because you sat there for an extra 20 minutes and had that third beer, you miss meeting your wife. You miss. You understand what I'm saying? Because you were supposed to meet her by seeing her at a grocery store when you were going back home to pick up something before you got home. You understand what I'm saying?
I was trying to focus on the paranormal, but you're absolutely right. I mean, any cause and effect action that you take or do not take, it's like you're saying, Josh. I mean, there's a multiplicity, of possibilities that could happen.
But it's unprovable. It's unprovable. How do you set about that, Josh? There's nothing, as in science, like you said, there's we share the same experiences, but also it's something that we have to use a scientific method for. It's something that has to be testable and something that has to be repeatable, result-wise.
And you bring up the fantastic point that sets all this aside. I believe that this is a provable hypothesis, and that's why I call it a hypothesis, based upon one thing. And obviously the idea of time travel, it is so complex that it opens up all of these currently unverifiable infinite possibilities. But here's how all we have to do to verify whether or not this is true is to be able at some point to transfer a being, we can say human beings for now, but maybe human beings will die out and in a few million years, frogs will evolve and be the dominant guys. I don't know, but we have to prove that a sentient being that is on par with human intelligence can travel back in time. That's how we prove whether or not this is just, a fancy or is a theory. And we know that it's possible. And what makes it even more interesting...
Well, wait. We know it's possible to travel forward in time, but back in time?
Well, that also is dependent upon whether or not you're talking about actually traveling back or just traveling back from a reference point that you establish in an experiment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So basically, like if you right now came up with a wormhole, you could say from now on, anybody in the future can travel back to this wormhole, versus you can travel back infinitely. And, basically, we know there are experiments that have been done on the quantum level that have stopped time. But the reason I say time travel is possible altogether is because a clock in your basement runs slower than a clock in your attic, because the one in your basement is closer to the Earth's gravitational field. So you have two simultaneous points that are taking place at different times. Well, surely we can stretch that some. But going beyond that, if indeed it is ever, and I'm talking ever, if you look at the infinity of possibilities ever in the future, possible for a sentient being to travel back in time, well, then we can presume that they probably have done so, and we probably have seen them or experienced them in some way already. And what makes it really complicated is that if they've done it, we can assume others have done it, and now we get into this idea of, are the people of the past simply, enslaved by the various dimensions that the people of the future have created? And that's where it gets out of hand.
Yeah. I would also want to say, the possibility of generating paradoxes. I don't know. You go back and, you know what I'm saying, you squash a bug and all of a sudden...
grandfather paradox.
Yeah.
We see those paradoxes have been overcome by these recent mathematics. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, this conversation that we're having about time is completely different than the conversation we may have had a couple months ago. It's because of these new mathematics that the scientists, including Dr. David Deutsch from Oxford, have finally proven. They have said that there is no reason mathematically to believe a paradox can exist. And the paradox is overcome because of the multiverses. A paradox can only occur if you travel back within the same realm that you were in, and screw up something in the chain of events. But if every time you travel back, and by the very act of traveling back, you end up in a different universe, well, then there are no paradoxes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, and if there's an infinite possibilities of the future, then there would also be an infinite possibilities of the past as well.
Exactly.
And for you to be able to go back to the specific line would be pretty difficult. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this is all based on the Oxford guys. If they're wrong, then this is all just a bunch of baloney. But but if they're right, then yes, now the hypothesis can be proven if we are able to take a human being back. The difficult part is that we don't know if humans have already achieved it. I mean, if you achieved it, you'd keep that a secret, wouldn't you? I mean, that'd be the biggest secret ever.
I would be a millionaire. I would get one of those sports almanacs like Biff got. Yeah. Heck yeah, man. I'm gambling, dude.
And
yeah, I'm like NFL. Yeah, baby. Sunday ticket's my ticket. You know what I mean?
And
yeah, but you know what? You might wind up in a universe where they don't win those games. Possibly. I don't know. I'm sorry.
The thing is, in my position, and I started out as nuts and bolts as you can get. I don't have any big degree in physics or any of this. I mean, I went to college for mass communications. I started out as a journalist when I was, my first job with a newspaper was when I was 15 years old. And so, over the years, having talked to people, having put their experiences together, and now, in retrospect, looking back, I can see that the idea of shifting within time and these beings not being a part of our everyday temporal consciousness or awareness, this is the only explanation that currently can make sense of all the circumstantial evidence. I mean, and if anybody's got a better one, I'd love to hear it. But, I mean, if you take into consideration all the evidence about how these things pop in and out of existence and some of the physical evidence that we're able to measure, I mean, it is a leap. We don't understand it. I don't have the answers, but I think this is a crucial aspect of trying to develop some type of understanding.
Well, tell us about your radio show. How's that going?
Well, I had another question.
Oh,
about
go
that.
ahead.
We'll follow it up, and all right, aliens, UFOs. Okay, they have high technology levels. Okay, so they could feasibly do this because they built the technology for spaceships, for example. And ghosts, maybe it's just an imprint from the past. What about cryptids? I mean, are they, if this paratemporal idea is possible, do you think they're doing it at will? Or do you believe that they would be, they're completely unaware of where they're stepping and how they're stepping to and fro?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like that it is probably a combination of those two. And I never looked intensely into this until I did a book that came out recently called Pet Ghost. And I did not name it that, by the way. I think Pet Ghost very much oversimplifies it because it's really a book about non-human apparitions. The publisher decided to call it Pet Ghost because there are pets in it. But
I think if you're looking at a sellable title and Pet Ghost and non-human apparitions, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
exactly.
They like short and sweet titles. So.
Marketing, man, marketing. Go ahead.
But I looked intensely into the idea of non-human apparitions. And I looked at the idea of physicality itself. The physical means that there are two energies which are resonating within a certain frequency that are able to resist each other and provide a force. But there is absolutely nothing to suggest that creatures or animals or beings cannot exist at realms that are non-physical to us. Doesn't mean they do, doesn't mean they don't, pardon me. But it does mean that, there is no reason we should rule out the idea that just beyond this physical realm, there can be creatures that exist. And what makes it more intriguing is to think that there may be these gray areas in which these creatures are able to sort of slip in and out. Now, getting back to your question, are they consciously and willfully doing this or not? In cases, it seems like that they are not, because most of the time, when a cryptid is seen, the cryptid seems to be either fleeing or startled unaware, disoriented. I mean, most of the time. We hear more about these reports where the cryptid seems very cognizant of the human observing it, but in most cases it's fleeing. On the other hand, you have these reports about hellhounds, for example. Now, hellhounds are these types of creatures, and I call any paranormal entity that seems to resemble an animal more than a human a phantomal. If you have these phantomals like hellhounds, sometimes, according to the historical record, they pop into existence and they are very determined. They have a mission, they fulfill that mission, and they are gone. So from there, we could even go so far as to say, okay, there is some other being that is commanding them, similar to how we command our dogs here in this realm. One of the best examples comes from, let's see, I guess it was 1487, or maybe it was 1587, the church in Bungay, England, during a church ceremony, this terrible thunder and lightning storm hit, and all of a sudden a few hellhounds came running through the congregation and started killing people, I mean, left and right. And not only were they tearing these people apart, but sometimes people died because these animals were so dense that masonry was crumbling beneath them and killing people. They had such an intense heat around them that to this day there are burn marks on some of the wood that still remains. And they had these, fiery red eyes. And then they just ran out as quickly as they'd come in, and then appeared minutes later about 10 miles down the road at another church and went in and tore all these people to pieces. Now,
wow,
we cannot say that this is true. There's no way for us to travel back to 1587 and verify what happened. But to the people who passed this story on, it was so impressive that to this day, the Bungay coat of arms has a black hellhound on the top of their crest to remind people of that event. Huh. So, and you can still see the burn marks. So, is that true or not? I don't know. But, and if we are to say, it's always the conditional when you're talking about the mysterious. If it's true, then it is an example of a phantomal that was charged with purpose and went to one church after another and killed people.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it just happened in one church, you could go around that somehow. But two different churches at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's really quite odd.
Yeah, that's quite a story. I haven't heard that one before.
We're coming up on our hard break here in a few minutes, but tell our listeners that aren't familiar. I know we've actually turned some people onto your show that have emailed us and said, "Oh wow, I listen to Joshua's show all the time now. Thanks, guys." And I'm like, "Well, I hope you're still listening to ours." But tell our listeners that aren't familiar with your show, when it comes on and all that good stuff.
Yes, my show, Speaking of Strange, airs every Saturday night live from 8 to 11 p.m. East Coast time, and it is also podcast and archived and all that. And Speaking of Strange does discuss the unusual in terms of the paranormal, but we also discuss things that are just downright weird. And we have serious conversations as well as a sense of humor. We have a crew of people we send out into the field to investigate things firsthand and bring back live reports. And so, I view a show like Coast to Coast AM as sort of your parents' kind of show. It's very scholarly and serious and academic as much as they can be. But my show, part of it's very serious, and then, we down a shot of hard liquor and have some fun.
I hear that.
And talk about, all the weird sex stories. For example, the other night I read a story about a guy who died because his wife put 2 bottles of sherry into him via an enema.
Oh my gosh. So I guess I won't be trying that one.
Yeah, scratch that one off the list.
Bad idea.
He died of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
Wow, that's freaky.
And it's weird. So.
Yeah, I was told just recently by management that I've been going too far with some of the stories. So
you
they
think?
might even fire me for all I know.
That was on the actual news.
Yeah, that was on the news, according to D.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, we're coming up on our hard break here for 5 minutes for the news on some of our affiliates. So we are going to hang tight with you just for a second if you'll hang out with us. And if anybody wants to call in here, 877-722-7382, that's toll free in the United States and Canada, or 336-996-1596 locally. If you're listening to World of the Unexplained, we've got Joshua P. Warren tonight, and we'll be back in just a little bit.
Roswell, UFOs, flying saucers, alien abduction. Are we alone? Information regarding this and many other questions about the unknown are only a click away at www.theufostore.com. Theufostore.com offers hundreds of DVDs about UFOs, aliens, crop circles, conspiracies, Bigfoot, suppressed science, ancient mysteries, and the latest DVD releases like Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs and the Alien Files 5-DVD set. Theufostore.com also offers the book Roswell, It Really Happened by Jesse Marcel, one of the last survivors of the Roswell UFO crash that examined the spacecraft wreckage in 1947, revealing its hidden secrets. Log on to www.theufostore.com and request a free UFO Store catalog. To receive a free catalog by mail, call 541-523-2630. That's 541-523-2630. Theufostore.com, the largest selection of UFO products on the Internet.
Welcome back to World of the Unexplained. This is Jay Scott. And tonight we're here with Joshua P. Warren. You can go to his website at www.joshuapwarren.com. You can also go to lemurteam.com. That's spelled LEMURTEAM. Joshua, you were the founder and president of Lemur Team. How are things going with that?
Very well. I mean, I reached a point early on when I realized that there was so much data to be collected here that one person cannot do it all, and one person doesn't have the expertise to do it all. So I formed Lemur to provide a group of people who are experts in a variety of disciplines who can come together and collect the data. And I view myself as a data collector. And once I get that information, I will turn around and hand it over to people who are more qualified in a particular field. For example, when we've done our Brown Mountain research, we've taken, physicists from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. We've taken professional geologists, forest rangers, and we rely on those specialists to help us determine if we are indeed operating our machinery correctly and if we are evaluating the results correctly.
I'd say you don't get one of those Bill Murray things in the first Ghostbusters. Are you sure you're using that right? I think so, yeah. But, I know you use a lot of the scientific method in the stuff that you do. And I don't know, a lot of people don't seem to be familiar with that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the problem with the scientific method in general, and I've always been a huge proponent of the scientific method, by the way, but the problem is the scientific method is based upon having complete access to the data. And in our culture today, it does not take into consideration politics, economics, our governmental structure. I mean, for example, if a flying saucer crashes outside my house right now and I go running out there, I may have 5 minutes to gather some information, but after that, you're going to have first responders on the scene, and then you're going to have a variety of law enforcement, and then military personnel will come in, and at that point, they determine what to do with the information, and those people are not necessarily scientists. They have interests that transcend pure scientific understanding, and so the problem with science in terms of trying to understand so many of these phenomena is that the scientists do not have access to all the data. And that's one thing that so few people realize. You have to consider that aside from the Internet, which is under a lot of scrutiny these days, there is no pure way of getting information across. And so you have a system in place in which people simply want the news fed to them. And they go to the easiest sources, your CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or whatever. And by the time it reaches that point, it's already filtered through a system of management.
Don't be knocking my Fox News, man.
and a lot of people, they don't seem to realize that, there are no secrets. People say, well, how could the government keep, a secret like the Roswell incident for so long? Well, the fact of the matter is it's not secret. I mean, the information is out there, but you have to have the motivation and the ambition to go out and learn for yourself. You can't wait for it to be spoon-fed to you.
I want to take a turn real quick because you brought up Roswell, if it's okay, to an X-Op show that never got aired that you and Jim Mars and a few other people were involved with. Can you tell us about what you saw there, or is that still under wraps?
Yeah, well, I think I can tell you, I'll tell you as much as I can. I mean, I did have to sign a pretty draconian and comprehensive, non-disclosure agreement, but so far I've talked quite a bit about it, and no one's come knocking on my door yet.
Well, if they do, just give me a call, Josh.
You're the man. You were the first guy I'll talk to.
All right.
But yeah, there was a producer in California named Jim Castle, who is a lifelong California resident. He's a professor at a film school, has won 5, maybe 6 Emmys, and he decided he wanted to put together a group that would take a truly effective and comprehensive approach toward understanding mysteries. And so he hired a team of people, including guys who are more, techno-oriented like myself, as well as, psychics and seers and a shaman, and he wanted to send us around to get a variety of perspectives. So the Discovery Channel gave him a contract with a great deal of money to pull off a pilot for this. I mean, and I can't say exactly how much, but I mean a lot of money to shoot 45 minutes worth of material as a pilot. We had our own private chartered jet. We had a helicopter to get aerial shots. We had thermal cameras. We had all the tools that we needed, and the first destination was Roswell, New Mexico. And we went to Roswell, and I myself was probably more surprised than anyone because this was in 2005, and up till that point, I was sort of indifferent about the UFO phenomenon, but I was being paid to investigate this, and so I took about 2 weeks and learned as much as I could about that incident and about the UFO phenomenon in general. And then once we got out there in the field doing this research, I'll give you just a few examples. I mean, we were on our way to the crash site, according to the most credible reports of locals, and we were pulled over and detained without explanation by the Roswell police. And then once we got out there, we had to hike a long way into the desert. When we got out there in the middle of nowhere, there was a white Suburban with people in it observing us. And we actually got some great stuff just in terms of a TV show. I mean, in fact, the most outstanding incident was when we went into Hangar 84, which is where the bodies were supposedly brought, and they wanted to conduct a seance because, believe it or not, there are dozens of people, and we have them on camera testifying that they have seen what they believe to be the apparitions of these aliens. And, we tend to separate ghosts and aliens, but, whatever an alien is, it seems like they can produce a ghost. And so we were there doing this seance, and while we were in Hangar 84, which is this big, cold, drafty building, we had these very pronounced footsteps, or what sounded like footsteps, marching around certain areas when no one was there. And at one point, we were shooting, and a cameraman, and mind you, the camera people who are professionals, I mean, these are usually big, tough, gruff guys. They are used to carrying equipment around. They are able to get it out there and back into the set quickly. I mean, real cameramen are tough guys, the guys who do documentaries. We were shooting, and all of a sudden, this one cameraman collapsed to the ground. We thought he was throwing up. We didn't. He was groaning. I mean, we stopped everything. We were about to call 911. He went outside, and he finally recovered and said he'd never had an experience like this before. So we brought him back in and resumed. Well, later, when we watched the footage, here we are sitting there around the table in the midst of this seance, and all of a sudden, an apparitional form like I have never seen was captured by multiple high-definition cameras from a variety of positions and perspectives. And as a person who probably looks at thousands of so-called paranormal images every single year, I was dumbfounded personally to see what I can only describe as a large form that appeared very much like a snake that went slithering over the top of our heads And as soon as this thing passed by, the cameraman hit the floor and had his attack. So this is something that was unbeknownst to us at the time, but in retrospect, we realized there may be a cause and effect relationship. Now, I don't know what we captured there, but when we got it, we said, wow, we've hit the jackpot. This is good TV. This is entertaining stuff.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of thing that I guarantee you people, millions of people would have tuned in to watch. And then suddenly, after the project was done, our contact at Discovery, the executive producer who was in charge of this thing, a woman who had been on the set, along with other Discovery producers, supervising what we did every single day, she suddenly was gone. She just vanished. And to this day, I mean, I've not heard a good explanation for what happened, if she got fired, if she quit. I mean, nobody will say. Even personal phone calls that were placed to her were not returned. And the whole project was dropped by Discovery. So somewhere in a Discovery vault, we can imagine that this raw footage is being kept. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that I've been told, and I understand, that the Discovery headquarters are in, I know they are in Silver Springs, Maryland, and their building is almost back-to-back with the NSA building. So it is possible that, we uncovered a little bit more than we should have for an entertainment show, and the project was canned because of that.
Yeah. That's really strange. That reminds me of what Scott was talking about, that series, The Men Who Killed Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And which episodes were it? It was like the fifth
like
and
the
sixth.
the last three?
Yeah, basically the ones that incriminated Lady Bird Johnson and whatnot.
No, it wasn't Lady Bird.
it was Lyndon
Johnson. She brought a lawsuit against.
Oh, right.
The
That's what
History
it was.
Channel and got an injunction.
But so I mean, you can't find those anywhere because it's politics and information control that kind of keeps the average viewer from actually seeing and hearing things that they don't want them to hear, basically.
Well, altogether, I know that whatever we documented there, whatever we captured, it was great TV. Mm-hmm. And for the powers that be to decide that this was not going to be great TV is suspicious to me, especially since that we were in Roswell and we were being monitored, by all these different, forces, so to speak. And so in the long run, all I can tell you is that something of great significance happened in Roswell in 1947, and it made such an impact that to this very day, there are people out there who are monitoring and filtering the information that makes it to the general public. Now, if there was nothing to it, if it simply was a weather balloon from Project Mogul, then what's all the hullabaloo about? And of course, if you consider that originally, the military said, "Oh, this was just a weather balloon," and then later they came back and said, "Okay, we admit it, we lied." There was a secret project going on, but this was not anything to do with aliens. It was about spying on the Russians. Well, they've admitted they lied once. Why should we believe them again? Why should we not think this is just an extension of some cover-up? And I can understand it because, I think 18 days after this thing crashed at Roswell, President Truman signed this National Security Act that ultimately formed the NSA, the Air Force, the CIA. Within days. We're not even talking about a month. And when you look at it in that context and you see that so many people have come forth on their deathbeds and talked about seeing the bodies there, you must realize, as so few people do, that Roswell is an area where the most highly regarded aviators in the entire world were stationed at the time. This is the place from which the Enola Gay left to drop the first atomic bomb. These people knew the difference between a weather balloon and, a craft from another world. And it was an insult to them that they resented the rest of their lives. Their reputations were damaged by this cover-up that basically said, no, these guys are idiots. They couldn't tell the difference between a weather balloon and something from elsewhere. And so, I mean, again, it's all circumstantial unless you see the alien for yourself. But even then, once people are in a mindset where they believe that we have not been visited, I feel like, I sincerely believe there are people who could see a flying saucer land right in front of them and a little green man get out and say afterward, I didn't see anything. They just don't process it. They don't comprehend it. And it's about what you were willing to be aware of.
Oh, interesting. Well, what other? We had discussed the UFO flaps that were pretty exciting in the Charlotte and surrounding areas. Have you noticed a continuance in that, or a resurgence in that, or have you noticed a decline?
This year we had a big UFO flap, earlier in the year, but as with most flaps, it has a limited period of time, and it wasn't just in our area. It was actually all the way from Alaska down through the southeastern part of the United States, and it was not just this year, but even going back into late last year. I actually think that a lot of the recent UFO activity we've seen is the product of the HAARP project in Alaska. HAARP, for those listeners who may not know, is the high altitude auroral research project, in which you have a group of scientists who are not secretive at all about this. They have a website. They are operating under the Navy laboratories in cooperation with the Air Force, trying to manipulate the energy fields around the Earth.
Yeah.
And they are basically short-circuiting the Earth betwixt the actual crust and the ionosphere, trying to see what effects it has on weather, on weaponry, on mind control. All these things. And last year, everyone predicted a terrible hurricane season. Well, we didn't have that terrible hurricane season, but we had other weird stuff like snow in California, or more snow than ever in Colorado. We had birds falling from the sky over Austin, Texas. We had all these bees disappearing, and they have continued to disappear all over the planet, or at least this continent. And so I do think that the HAARP project, which was recently completed according to their official stance, the HAARP project is manipulating the atmospheric conditions, and that applies to all of the phenomena that we experience here on Earth. And that I have shown, demonstrated, proven in a laboratory that you can use natural plasmas to create flying saucer-type shapes. My team and I actually made the cover of a science journal in 2004, which was demonstrating how the unusual plasmas in nature can take on paranormal characteristics. And one thing that we were able to demonstrate in the laboratory is that it's quite easy to make a flying saucer shape glowing in a plasma chamber. And so I think a lot of the recent flap activity that we've experienced is probably a combination of the unusual effects that HAARP has created, combined with the fact there may be other interests from these other entities, aliens or whatever you want to call them, that are realizing that we are screwing around with a very complex system here, and they must have some interest in it.
Now, what's the rest of October looking like for you? I know it's your busy season now.
Well, throughout the remainder of October, aside from just many speaking engagements and the cruise and that sort of thing, people often ask me as we approach Halloween, are there more paranormal phenomena? And generally my answer is yes. And it's yes because of a combination of factors. Number one, you have got people who are anticipating something weird, and if you talk to the most prestigious parapsychologists in the field, people like Dr. Andrew Nichols or Lloyd Auerbach, they believe wholeheartedly that however you explain it, there is some relationship between the human mind and consciousness and expectation and what manifests physically. They look at it as a PK factor. So when people are out there anticipating things, expecting things to occur, they do occur, and when they do occur, people are more aware of them. Secondly, the atmospheric conditions in most of this country are better because it's colder, it's drier, more electrostatic charges are able to build, and there is an undeniable connection that I found between the buildup of electrostatic charges and what people describe as paranormal phenomena.
Oh, well said.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a good point about people. Well, I mean, people are looking at Halloween.
Yeah, if you're looking for it, you're going to see it.
Even though it could be going on at all times, and you just aren't paying any attention. But around Halloween, people are.
Well, what do you hold? You know, you hear things about the history of Halloween. Sam Hain. What's the other thing I'm thinking about? The
All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, all this kind
All
of stuff.
Saints Day.
How do you think all this ties into to Halloween today?
Well, you know, ancient people, they did not have the same attachment that we have to what can be presented and proven collectively. And it goes back to what we were discussing earlier with overlapping philosophies with parallel universes. I mean, ancient people seem to be almost, well, more like children or animals in the sense that they were open to whatever was around them and whatever works. And we've lost that in this day and age. We don't pay as much attention to what works and what is effective. If we can't understand something, we just dismiss it. The ancient people did not dismiss something because they couldn't understand it. They were far more open to the fact that this world is way more complex and way more overwhelming than we can possibly comprehend, and so they just paid attention to what the symptoms or the by-effects were. And so in times past, you know, the ancient people were so aware of astronomy and the world that we live in and what was effective for their crops and so on, that I do think they had a sense of when this veil, if you want to call it that, was thinned between our realm and some other realm in which these beings exist most of the time. And you know, I'm certainly not a psychic or a sensitive. I mean, I think everybody has some psychic potential, but I don't have more than the average person. And I think that they, you know, they were aware of that same feeling a lot of us get as that time of year rolls around. It's it's a natural transition, it's a cycle. You know, things are dying, things are you know, being born again, and they realized that there was some, you know, thinness that was happening between this realm and some other realm, and I think that's not only the genesis for Halloween among the, you know, the ancients, the Celtics and the Gaelics, but a variety of other cultures around the world have appreciated that same time of year.
So what do you do on Halloween night, Joshua?
You know, usually on Halloween, I just try to relax because I'm so busy, you know, doing interviews and speaking engagements and stuff up to that time of year, that particular day that I relax. But this Halloween, I plan to be in Asheville at the Gray Eagle, which is where one of my favorite musicians, Unknown Henson, is going to be performing, and he is a 300-year-old hillbilly troubadour country vampire, and he's from Charlotte, actually, and this guy puts on one hell of a fun show, and people here in Asheville go all out for it, so that's where I'm planning to be this Halloween.
Okay. A 300-year-old hillbilly vampire.
That's it.
Fantastic. Unknown Henson. Wow.
Bring your stakes and hammers, boys. We're
300-year-old hillbilly vampire. That's the most awesome.
We're going to take our last break for the night, but I'm still mad that none of my listeners have called in tonight, guys.
Seriously.
Where are you at? You're making me look bad in front of my friend Josh. All right, so give us a call, 877-722-7382, or locally 336-996-1596. We're going to be right back with Joshua P. Warren after the break. Hang in there, guys.
This is the last 20 minutes or so of World of the Unexplained. The numbers are 1-877-722-7382, 1-877-SCARE-YOU-TOO, or 336-996-1596. We got Joshua P. Warren, investigator, author, television personality, extraordinaire,
Radio
and
personality.
media personality. Why are you people not calling? Come on now, it's Joshua P. Warren. He's
He is
practically
here to answer your questions.
just a treasure trove of information about all things paranormal. Why are you people not calling?
Yeah, we're upset with you.
Seriously, I can't imagine why. I've got no real plausible reason why you guys aren't calling. 1-877-722-7382, 336-996-1596. Okay, we were just talking about this a little bit before the break. Joshua, let's talk about David Icke and his philosophies about
Life.
yeah, stuff.
Works for me.
I'm sorry?
All right, yeah, it works for me. Okay, shall I just dig into it?
Just dig in.
just dive right in.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with my wife recently about some of Ike's theories, and most of us never think about the simple concept that there is probably not one single cow on this entire planet that knows people eat cows. And,
You're probably right.
Yeah, that's true.
One day a guy shows up, he feeds them, he waters them, he seems like Mr. Nice Guy. And then one day some of their friends go off somewhere else, and, they may have their own ideas about where they go. But there is probably not a cow that realizes we eat them. Well, we may be so arrogant and egocentric that we don't actually think that it's possible for something to eat us or, feed on us without us knowing about it. But maybe. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to look at in terms of an evolutionary system. I mean, I clearly believe that there is such a thing as evolution. It's you can demonstrate it easily, and we can get into that if you want to. But altogether, I used to laugh at it, but now I think maybe. I mean, why not? Wouldn't that be the easiest secret to keep altogether? I mean, the President of the United States could stand right there and say, okay, guys, we are sucking your blood so that we will not shapeshift into reptilians. People would not believe it.
Yeah.
Or
It
smoke
would be
them out.
the easiest secret to keep. Do I believe that's what's happening? No, I don't believe, but I don't disbelieve. I don't know. But, boy, that would explain a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
And we hate to think of it that way, but I have actually spoken with people, you guys may have, who claim they have seen the reptilian ship.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked to a few.
Now, have you heard the theory that former U.S. President Bill Clinton is actually a Rockefeller?
No.
I think this was brought up by David Icke when he also said that all 41 presidents of the United States have been directly related to one another, and this apparently has been confirmed by a genealogical organization known as Burke's Peerage and Gary Boyd from the New England Historical Society. William Jefferson Clinton is the one who somehow does not fit, and that's when they tie him back to Rockefeller somehow.
Winthrop Rockefeller, the
Okay.
governor of Arkansas.
Oh, Winthrop.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
What a name.
That explains it.
I guess so.
Which would make him the Rockefeller that's now senator of West Virginia. I think that would make him Bill Clinton's nephew.
Okay. Yeah.
No, he's about 10 years his senior.
So aristocracy has not actually gone away. It's just gone underground.
Well, no,
and we put a suit on it.
It brings up some interesting.
You know?
It brings up some interesting questions, though, even in modern politics today. I mean, if in fact Hillary Clinton does win this presidency, God save us all. But if in fact that does happen, all you have is you have a dynasty president. Presidency.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Bushes, then the Clintons. Then the Bushes, then the Clintons. I mean, where does that end?
Well, when it comes to the electoral process, I imagine that you guys are good Americans. You get out there and vote, right?
Of course we do.
Yeah.
At least I do. Trent
But,
does.
I mean,
Trent doesn't.
can you really explain
He does.
what the Electoral College is?
Yeah.
All right. What's your best explanation for what the Electoral College is.
My best explanation for what the Electoral College is a group of guys that get together and all vote on the president that they want to be the president.
Right.
And it really doesn't matter what the people in your state tell you to vote for. You still have the chance at the end of that all, if you're not agree that they made the best decision, then they can vote for whoever they want to.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, according to law, there's no conspiracy there. I mean, the whole idea of voting, I vote. I mean, I think it makes a difference on a local level, but when it comes to the president, how can we feel that our votes count when you can see in black and white there that this individual is under no regulation that is accountable to the populace to cast his or her electoral vote? In fact, in North Carolina, they've been trying to pass a law for a while now saying that even if North Carolina votes for a particular party, if the majority of the rest of the country goes for the other, then they will just go along for the ride. I mean, that sounds unbelievable, but that's what they've actually been trying to push here. So it just goes to show you that, there are powers controlling the system we live in which go beyond how you vote as an individual, and and that's something that we should all take into consideration when it comes to how information is passed down to the individual.
Now you're an independent, aren't you, Josh?
Yes, I am.
Who are you rooting for, if you don't mind me asking?
At this point, I don't feel strongly about anybody. And again, I don't feel like the voting really makes that much of a difference. But I tell you one thing: Mitt Romney looks like Dracula.
Yeah, I know, right? And he looks like a snake oil salesman.
He looks like Dracula.
Oh. That's why he's got so much money. I was reading a story the other day on my show about these political candidates in Poland who have decided they're going to take their whole party of women candidates and put them naked on posters around the country. They believe in, the true independence of women. And at first I was like, oh, I'm all for that. And then I realized Hillary was running, and I said, no. The people who are running for office are not necessarily the ones you want to see naked on a poster. So
definitely not. Well, we got 5 more minutes with you, Josh. So I want to plug your book, How to Hunt Ghosts, Pet Ghost.
How we can find
Haunted Asheville. You can get all this stuff, I believe, at joshuapwarren.com. Am I correct in that?
That's the best central location. Most of my books are available for order through bookstores, but the best bet is just go online, just like with anything else. Go to joshuapwarren.com, and you'll find links to all the stuff I'm working on. And, I do my best to try to answer emails. I get a lot of emails, but I do my best to try to answer the ones that seem credible.
Well, for those that are unfamiliar with investigations, and I know, God knows, we've covered this territory a zillion times in our show, but what would you recommend for them other than your book, How to Hunt Ghosts? What kind of equipment would you recommend someone would have? What stuff do you use? What do you think they should use? That kind of thing.
Very basic stuff. Get a compass, get a fluorescent light bulb, and get a camera. And at the most basic level, the things that seem to change in the environment when something paranormal is about to happen are the electromagnetic fields and the electrostatic fields. Now, a compass is not extremely sensitive, but if it deviates from north, and you have a pretty extensive magnetic field that is influencing the compass, and that's that's a poor man's way of telling whenever something is changing in the electromagnetic environment. The electrostatic effect can be demonstrated using a fluorescent light bulb, because you're talking about a gas in there that is excited by the flow of electrons. So if you walk around with an electrostatic, or I should say a fluorescent bulb in your hand, if you come into contact with a strong electrostatic charge, it will light up in your hand right there.
Simple as that.
Use those two in combination. Use a high shutter speed on your digital camera, because a digital camera is sensitive to infrared energy, plus it can give you instant feedback. And also the high shutter speed will allow you to isolate frequencies that are oscillating faster than the naked eye can perceive, like fan blades spinning. And those are some very basic things you can find around the house that will help you to see into other realms and to document something weird is happening And from there, of course, you can take it in whatever direction is most interesting to you.
No, I remember seeing you on a pilot episode of George Nuri's on this Sci-Fi channel not too long ago, and you were demonstrating some kind of effect with electromagnetism, I guess. It was kind of weird.
I was stroking a pipe. Is that what you mean?
That was the one, yeah. I was going to let you talk about that.
Yeah, I was actually building up a charge on a PVC pipe and levitating a small loop of aluminized mylar. And, I read the first review that I read of that show said Joshua Warren is stroking a pipe.
Well, how did that go? Are they going to make any more of those?
I haven't heard anything else about it. I mean, they were very adamant about doing it, and I keep being told, the TV industry is all slow. But, and frankly, I don't even care about being on TV. I'd rather produce TV programs.
Yeah.
But at this point, I would not put my money on the continuation of that particular show.
That's a shame. It was a good show, and you were in a lot of it.
Yeah, well, they shot 2 pilots. They shot one with me and Gary Busey, and they shot one with Whitley Strieber, and Strieber's whole thing got cut. But during the pilot with Strieber, he started talking about having this implant in his ear. And,
oh, Lord.
Nori just reached over and just squeezed his ear, just honk, honk.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I'm not sure what the customary thing is to do when it comes to squeezing another man's implant. But Nori did not ask for permission, and so I said, well, I'm going to do it too then.
Oh, my gosh.
Walk up to Strieber and just squeeze his implant, but I never saw him again.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on the show again, Josh. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and a happy Halloween.
Oh,
thank you so much. Same to you.
All right.
We'll see you soon.
Talk to you later.
All right, take care. And that was Joshua P. Warren.
Man, all kinds of stuff gets brought up talking to Joshua.
Chuck doesn't have any implants in his ear. I just checked.
Squeezing.
He looked at me funny when I did it, too.
Every time
my lobes here, man.
Yeah.
Every time we talk
implant.
talk to Joshua, all kinds of crazy things get brought up.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fascinating stuff, like there's that Hellhound story. I've never heard of that one.
Well, I want to know, going back to the political thing just for a second.
Oh, come on.
No, I want to know about the Electoral College that we brought up. Are there records of how these people vote? I'm assuming there are.
There are,
probably
actually,
should be.
Yeah. In fact, I think the last time...
Anybody deviate? When's the last time somebody
in
deviated?
2000, the one from Washington, D.C. Did not, I think, cast her vote for Gore in protest because she thought that the whole thing was a sham.
Uh-huh.
I think before that, the last time it had happened was maybe in 68 or 72 with Nixon, one of the ones in Hawaii.
Really?
I think changed parties.
Go Hawaii.
So in general, though, this is something that very, very
Once
rarely
in a
happens.
blue moon does that actually happen. I don't
Yeah.
think you really have a lot to fear as far as that's concerned.
I was just saying, and you look at states like Hawaii. How many electoral votes? do
Go
they have? Not a
Hawaii.
lot.
What, 2 or 3?
Something like that. And then in Washington D.C., it's
2.
next to nothing. So these aren't states that are going to swing the choice.
And a lot of the time, it's just a show of protest. It's not typically significant.
Although Hawaii is the only state of the union that actually had a king before it became a state. Yeah, the Hawaiian monarchy, Kamehameha. Yeah,
I did not
believe that.
It's the only. Well, I don't know if Kamehameha or his royal line was around, but it's the only state of the union that actually had a legitimate king of that.
Well, so what happened
land.
what happened to the family?
I'm not sure what. I would imagine the royal family's still around somewhere.
I'd be kind of
The
pissed
whole-
off then, man. That's kind of breaking into my monarchy
Yeah,
there,
that's
dog.
true, yeah.
If I'm like the third generation, 3 generations down to grandson, man,
Yeah.
I'm mad, dude. I'm working at
I'm gonna
Taco Bell.
Start worshiping
Yeah,
Lomo
right?
again.
I'm working at Taco Bell, and I'm thinking, I could be sitting in the palace, dog. What's up?
Well, it's
I'm mad.
Maybe they'll revolt and
They'll revolt.
it's the Hawaiian Revolution.
Yeah, we don't want to be the 50th state anymore.
Forget it.
Y'all are back to 49.
Yeah, Puerto Rico will step right in.
pineapples and coffee.
That's right. Pineapples and macadamia nuts. It's all.
That's true. I don't think they can grow macadamia nuts in any other part of the country.
Yeah.
You never see them. It's always Hawaii that they come from.
And they're always like $5 for a.
Well,
for
that's
they're
why
very
this
expensive.
probably because they come from Hawaii.
It's like a little bitty container, man.
Yep.
But you can't make good cookies without them.
Oh yeah, best cookies.
At least not macadamia nut
exactly.
cookies.
Yeah. I mean that's kind
an
of
essential
macadamia.
ingredient.
Yeah. You
well,
leave those out.
probably,
it's like-
Chuck.
Yeah.
Probably, and it rhymes with academia too. I don't really know where that's going. Yeah.
He's trying to say that academics are nuts. That's what he's trying to say.
Oh, and how clever of you, Scott, to find out
yes.
my secret word twisting. But anyway, it's always a pleasure talking to Joshua. And Halloween's just coming up, man. I can't wait. I love it. You know? I wish there was some good costume parties around.
I do too.
You know,
I don't know what to be this year.
I know.
I was a priest one year.
I seriously.
Ghostbuster last year, I think.
Oh, were you?
No, I was Elvis last year. I was a Ghostbuster the year before.
I was Julius
and a
Caesar.
priest the year before that.
Yeah, I was
I
Julius
remember.
Caesar last year.
Trent looked like Julius Caesar.
It was kind of cool.
He had the robe and the sprigs in his, between his ears.
I had the
I'm serious.
I had
saw it.
and the curly dark locks. You know.
Yeah, he did.
It
was bad.
It was good.
And I was Elvis, man. I had the
It was pretty cool.
sideburns that were attached to my glasses. I was the fat Elvis. Yeah.
I thought it'd be really cool to be a Dalek, except that I'm way too big to fit inside one of those things, and I'd have to create it all by myself. But I promise you, any costume party that I go to, I would be like the baddest thing there. You know what I'm saying?
He's bad.
Somebody who's very small with an enterprising spirit, please make a Dalek costume and email us the pictures because we'll never be able to do it.
Yeah, any of you fine women that want to wear the genie costume, you can email us the pictures on those as well. World of the Unexplained at gmail.com.
That's right. Send them in. We just need to ask people.
If they're good enough, we'll post them once our website comes back.
That's true. People need to just send in their
we got a
Halloween
caller, it
costume
looks like.
photos.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean,
seriously.
seriously, send it. If you got photos from Halloween, that'd be great. We'll put up a special page just for you, and we'll take pictures from our little party, and we'll throw them all up there together, and it'll be kind of wild.
I think it just happened.
Be neat.
I
think
like that. I like that idea too. So please do that. Email
the picture to worldoftheunexplained at gmail.com. That's G as in Google.
Yeah,
I say that a million times, and I promise that the for those of you that listen via podcast, that this podcast are going to be updated fairly soon. Who we got on?
Ron, he just wants to say hi.
Oh, okay. Ron, what's up, man?
Hey, God bless you guys. What's up?
God bless you too, man. We're just hanging out here and,
about to
get ready to close the show down.
I know, excellent guest, man. All that information about the Appalachians in the beginning, and then, you had a lot of stuff about the ghosts.
You should have called in, man.
Yeah.
Josh is a good friend of ours. We've known him for a number of years.
Talks
I
about.
know. I'm sure he'll be around. He's probably got a lot of books left in him and stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, how are you guys, man? You sounded pretty good tonight. You had a lot of political stuff to say. I like to hear that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. As much as we can spit out, anyway.
Well, what do you think? What do you think is shaping up for the political race? Everybody's posturing, and then they have that thing that Bush said was like, Clinton's going to run, but then she's going to lose, and what, Giuliani's going to take it? Or what was,
I really don't think you should be
hear that
taking your political cues from George W. Bush.
Yeah.
I didn't hear
a line
statement.
out of his
view from that.
new
I didn't say I
biography.
was taking my view from that. I just said I think that's what he said. It wasn't that, or
It was exactly what he said.
What did he say?
I wouldn't put any stakes in it either.
Well, what did he
but
say?
no, that Hillary Clinton will get the nomination. She'll lose in the general election. That's
Oh.
a no-brainer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even for George W.
Well, I mean, what do you think about Obama saying he doesn't want any nuclear weapons? I took that as a way.
He's just not ready for prime time. The guy's a political novice. That's all there is to it.
I think he needs to talk to Vladimir Putin, and he might reconsider his little no nuclear policy.
What I'm saying is, man, that's sort of a very bold thing. I mean, have you guys really thought through the logic of that? Like saying, no nukes is like saying, look, America, we don't need the nuclear weapons because he knows of some kind of technology that will make it where we don't need nuclear weapons.
Well, I mean, possibly.
I think it means we're going to be a bunch of pansies if we don't have nuclear.
It would be great if we couldn't.
Or is he saying psychologically, like, redshirt me and maybe I'll catch you next election? I mean, what is he trying to say with that? Because there's a thing, saying I don't want any nuclear weapons in the country. Well, that's our strategic defense right there. That's what makes us not have to need a draft. Is that we can defend the country with strategic weapons.
It's effectively what makes us.
What prevents us from having the draft is a volunteer army. It has nothing to do with nuclear weapons.
but it is.
Has everything to do with nuclear weapons, man. The volunteer army, believe me, is tremendous. Our people in the military are the best people in the world, and they are the most capable people of defending the public. But don't get me wrong. This is, if you really want to get historical about it, I mean, it's cut and dried, man. It's all in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, the military is going to be the size that it takes to protect the public. If they have to use strategic weapons to protect the general public, then they will. But, you know, I always, when I call in, I touch on this, you know, aside from saying things like if, you know, that nobody really wanted to do God's work. That's in the Bible, you know, that most people are just obstinate and only Jesus was holy. The other thing to say is that, you know, if you're going to have civil defense, it has to be based around being able to still be there the next day, and the best way to do that is food production and storage.
Or contracting Blackwater mercenaries.
All right, we're not getting into that.
All right, we're
Ron,
running out of
thanks
time,
for calling,
Ron.
buddy. We
So,
appreciate it. We'll see you next week, all right?
Oh,
he's gone.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. We appreciate you calling. But
we are running out of time,
my
unfortunately.
God. All right.
Fire Blackwater mercenaries, Chuck.
I think they're great. I really do. I'm all for it.
What, mercenaries?
Yeah, sure. Hired guns, man. Go for it. We're America.
You know what?
We're
It
big.
worked.
We're
It worked
patriots. We got
but it worked for
guns.
years and years and years during the age of you know, Britain's vast empire. You know, it wasn't always British soldiers that was there. They used mercenaries, and it worked pretty effectively.
So did the Romans.
You know, but then again, mercenaries are kind of not exactly very
We're
loyal
also
either.
paid about 12 times as much as our servicemen too, so there's something disproportionate about it.
Yeah,
All right, guys.
that's very unfortunate. We gotta.
Yeah, we got to go. This is Jay Scott. You're on the JDDJ on the Omni Sound Radio 1 Network.
This is Trent Lackey. I'm wearing my ex-Star Trek T-shirt tonight. Kernersville, North Carolina, small town. We talk about big things.
Chuck Browder.
We out!